use in my 1308, 1406, and 1408 classes. At any time that you would like me to pause or show you something in more detail, just interrupt me, please. So we're coming up, gosh, on a year since we had to make that really quick pivot to online learning. And I felt like I had it down pretty well for in-person learning, how to incorporate a lot of interactive and group activities in my classroom. And then I had to figure out how to transition all of those to online learning. I made a commitment to my students when we had to pivot mid-semester that I was going to give them as close to the same experience as I could. And I failed a lot. Some things just didn't work. So I'm not going to show those things to you. Some were a disaster. I'm going to show you the things that I've done in my online classes that the students really like. And frankly, that I enjoyed doing as well. And also the things that I saw really increase their engagement with each other, but also with me and with the content. So we're going to get started with, I'm going to go with just really basic. Something really basic is what I'm going to start with. And that is breakout groups. We probably all use them. Let me show you the agenda here. So we're going to go through breakout groups first, super basic, and then I'm going to move into some more interactive activities and websites online. So maybe you have struggled with getting the students, once they're in those breakout groups, to interact with each other. Because what happened at first in that spring semester, right? So I'm thinking, oh, we can still do this. We can work in groups. I'm gonna put them in breakout groups and they're just gonna talk to each other and it's going to be great. Well, that was not my experience. I put them in breakout groups and I would look down the line and everybody's microphone would be off and I'd pop in the group and it's crickets. I would try to engage them. They were probably not there. They wouldn't interact back. And so I thought, how can I use breakout groups better to increase their engagement more where they're actually participating? So I'm going to show you just a few things that I have found to increase that participation. First of all, accountability. So we have to get away from just lecturing. We all know that. This department is really good about not being a department of people who just lecture. And so we have to get away from that. We have to engage not just the auditory learners or even just the visual learners, but how do we get those tactile learners in this online environment? And so what I tried to do is really diversify how I use those breakout groups. So there's certainly opportunity for dialogue once they get used to it. The hardest part is really setting the expectation that when you're there, it's to talk to each other, right? That's not your time to zone out and put yourself on mute and listen to music. You're there to really teach each other, learn from each other, and engage in dialogue with each other. So one way I set that expectation, this is a really old school, if anyone has any training in just sort of basic pedagogy for education, you know this think, pair, share method. And so it's just really incorporating that, saying, okay, I'm going to ask you a question or I'm going to give you a problem. I usually start the semester with this question in breakout groups. What's one way that biology relates to your everyday life? Think about it. I'm going to put you in groups to share about it. I'm going to pair you up. You're going to discuss it. And when you come back, I'm going to ask you. And I set the expectation that someone from each group has to talk. You can figure out who that person is. But when we come back as a whole class, I'm going to call on every single group and someone has to share. And so kind of setting that expectation up front at the beginning of the semester really sets the tone for what I expect them to do in their breakout groups. So sometimes when I put them there, it is just, here's a problem, discuss it, come back, and then I'm going to call on your group, and someone from your group is going to be able to answer my questions. So discussion is one way. But what I have found far more effective than just expecting them to discuss is giving them a tangible thing to complete, some sort of deliverable that when I pop around to their different breakout groups, I can see on the board what they're working on. And so I'll give them something like this. You have to write this on the board. So here's a template DNA sequence. Write on your whiteboard. So I put these on slides that I share out to all the groups. And so it's on their whiteboard in their breakout group. Write the mRNA sequence, write the translated amino acid sequence. So then when I'm going around, I can actually see their progress on the board. I have found something like this far more effective than just, hey guys, go discuss this and come back. We do that also. I'm just saying this has been, I think, a little bit more effective than just always doing discussion. So giving some kind of deliverable that they have to write down. And so I have a lot of these charts. They're in the repository. These are on slides, like I said, that I just share out. They fill it out as a group, and then I kind of go around and check their progress. I have some diagrams. Sometimes I'll send them out to label diagrams. But what I'm going to show you guys is if you did my session in the summer, there's a lot of overlap. This is one thing that I also have in the repository are some interactive drag and drop slides, and the students love this. It's really not hard, especially because I've already set up the drag and drop template. So really all it would take to incorporate in your classroom is to put that in your own Google Drive. And then I just copy it. I make a copy for each group. So I have 8 groups. So I copied it 8 times. So now every one of those has its own link. And so I just copy that link, and in the announcements on Blackboard, I post a link for each group. And so I'll say, guys, I'm gonna send you out into breakout groups. Pay attention to the number of your group, because once you get in your groups, leave your microphone on and click on the link. And it'll open that shared slide where everyone can move things around. So I'm gonna show you some things from my Google Drive. And like I said, these are in the repository. You just have to put them in your own Google Drive. So for example, here's a mitosis meiosis matching. And so I have these things over here, they can move around, and I'll say, okay, put the stages of mitosis in order and then match it with a picture. And so they can drag it, and everyone, because they clicked on the same link, everyone in that breakout group is able to manipulate those and move those around. There's one also for meiosis. And so they just like that. It's really simple, but they enjoy that interactive component. I also have one in there for atom modeling, where I say, okay, let's build a model of lithium and a model of fluorine. And they have to use their periodic table, and they can drag the protons and the neutrons and the electrons. And then when I go around between the groups, I can click on their link and see their progress. This one is particularly effective because I don't know if it's just my students, but they talk about sharing and transferring electrons like those are interchangeable terms. And as much as I say it and as many ways as I try to reword it, I feel like that is something they just get stuck on. And so by physically moving them, let me show you this group. So by physically building the models, and then when I go into their group, I say, okay, lithium has 1 valence electron and fluorine has 7. How could they cooperate with one another to fill their valence shell? And then when they physically move that electron, something seems to just click in their brains. And then we can talk about, you know, now lithium has more protons than electrons, and they can just see it. And so I do these with diagrams too, drag and drop labels to label a diagram, but this in particular is something that the students really, really enjoy doing. So any questions so far?
Angela, this is Laura, and thank you so much. These are beautiful. Just a quick question. Do you have to reset these at the end after the student does them? Do you have to go back and reset them?
Well, yes, but here's my trick, Laura, because I'm always about efficiency. I keep one unaltered one. And so I'll just delete all these and then I'll just copy that unaltered one. So I don't have to go back and physically move all of these for next semester. That's just me.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Angela, will you share these with us?
Yeah, so the one slide that's a drag and drop template for all of these is in the repository for sure 1308. But I can check the 1408 and 1406 repositories as well.
I can get 1408. That's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so moving on. So that's kind of how I try to increase their collaboration with each other. But another hurdle that we kind of have to climb doing this interactive learning environment is engaging the students with the content and with us, because we're separated by this screen. It feels a lot more impersonal. And so how do we get the students engaged and motivated to learn? And so I'm going to show you some websites that I use that turns a lecture into an interactive experience where they are engaging with the content instead of just sitting there and listening to something. Because if you can get them engaged, I feel like the motivation follows behind that. First, you have to engage them and make them interested in what you're teaching them. So I'm going to show you my two. I mean, there are a lot. I can't, obviously some at the end, you guys are going to share with me and I'm going to learn from you. But I'm going to give you my personal two favorite websites to use, and I'm going to show you how I use them. So I love Edpuzzle. So I'm going to bring that website up. I'm going to share this PowerPoint on that. I can put it in the repository, and I think I can also add it to that spreadsheet that Laura shared. So you can click on the links from the PowerPoint. So I'm going to show you Edpuzzle, which I love. So Edpuzzle is, you see here, these are all the 1406 videos that I have chopped up. I'm going to show you what I do with those in just a second, but their video splicing tool is the most user-friendly that I have found. It's super easy to chop something up. You know, so we have 40-minute lab videos. I try to break them up into more manageable chunks for the students. And I'll show you what I do with those in just a second. But also, I have some videos that my kids actually helped me do when we started, you know, when quarantine first started in March, when no one was going anywhere. I have two teenagers stranded at home. They're 14 and 16. And so I put them to work, and I had them go through the models that my students were going to build in class. And I had them build them and then record themselves doing it. And then they edited them. I don't know how, with their teenager magic. They then edited, like spliced things together and made them into videos. And then I put them in Edpuzzle, and then I added questions to them. So like here's one on DNA structure, and you can see it's sort of just a review of DNA structure, and every one of these just represents a place that I added a question. And so there are 8 questions for this one, I think 12 for the one on the plasma cell membrane. But it's a way to take that information and make it interactive, where they're not just watching, they're watching and interacting, watching and answering. And you can do this with videos that you make, but you can also just go grab anything off of YouTube or Khan Academy. You can take a video and add questions or splice it that you find in any of these other places as well. And you can also assign them for grades. There's a way that Edpuzzle will record and save how many of those questions they answered correctly. To do that, you really need to set up a class. And so let me go back up here and let me drag this. My classes. So if you click on my classes, you can share these and just make them open content. The problem with that is the students do not have to log in, and so they don't always put their name in. And so if you really do want to take it for a grade, I would not recommend sharing it as open content. I would assign it to a class. So you just go in, and whatever your class is, you set up a class. This is higher ed and it's biology. And you set up a class. And then you can invite students. You get a link. I usually just put it in my Blackboard announcements and say, hey guys, everybody click on this link and register for our class in Edpuzzle. And then I can assign one of these videos, and they'll go through and answer the questions. And after they do, I can see how they did. And if I choose to, I can make this a grade. And so I like that as well, that I can assign them and use them for a grade. Let's see, what else can I do in Edpuzzle? You can do it synchronously. You can go live and do it synchronously, or you can just assign it as an asynchronous assignment. Any questions about Edpuzzle?
That's wonderful. Just a comment, really, Angela, that seems super helpful. I was hoping to tomorrow attend a VidGrid video, which I believe has kind of the same thing that you are describing, but this looks much, much easier. So
it is. It's very, very user-friendly. It's a free website. You just register for a free account, and then it's free also for all the students to join. And yes, the user-friendliness of it has been wonderful.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so now I'm going to show you my absolute favorite. I use this every single class period in one way or another. So I'm going to show you some of the ways that I use Nearpod. I use it. I do all my lectures as synchronous lectures. And so I use them during synchronous lectures. And then for labs, we have all these wonderful videos, but that's an asynchronous lesson. And I'm going to show you how I also use Nearpod for those asynchronous lessons as well. So I'm going to open up Nearpod. And I think this one y'all are really going to like. There's so much that you can do with this particular website. Okay, also free. Go to nearpod.com, set yourself up an account, and you can create lessons and do almost anything that you're thinking, gosh, I wish I could do this. Nearpod does it. So I created a lesson. I'm going to add a slide. I can input videos. I can just input my slides from my lecture. I can do links. They even already have a whole bunch of simulations from the University of Colorado loaded on there. If you want to put in some quiz questions, a poll, I'm going to show you a Collaborate board that I use. They can label diagrams. I mean, the Flipgrid Laura mentioned, you can put those in here as well. Really anything that you want, it's a way to kind of put it all together in one interactive place. So I'm going to show you, this is sort of, I pulled some things from different Nearpods that I have, and I put them all in this one place. And so the first thing I'm going to show you, I start class off. Well, actually, you know what? Let me go back and let me show you this. So if you want to do a synchronous lesson, so I have my lesson built right here. I want to do a synchronous lesson. I click on live participation, and it gives me the code. It's a randomly generated code. So for my students, they have the option of getting Nearpod on an app on their phone, or just opening another window on the computer they're already on for class. And they just click on join lesson. I send them this code in the Blackboard chat, enter this code. When they do, we are all looking at the same exact thing on our screen. So I'll open up. Now we're all in Nearpod. I'm controlling it. So whatever I am projecting is showing up on their screen. And so one of the ways I love to start class is with a review. And so this is what's called a Collaborate board. I'll just pose some kind of question that's a 1 or 2 word answer. And it'll be on the screen at the beginning of class. Name the enzymes involved in DNA replication. I like to do this one when we talk about mitosis. It's been a while since we've talked about DNA replication, because in the textbook, you guys know the order is you talk about DNA structure and replication, and then a whole unit on protein synthesis before you get back to mitosis. So let's remind ourselves, let's think back in our brains, let's name some of the enzymes involved in DNA replication. And so this will just be up on their screen. And you see right here, this is what they see. Share your thoughts. So someone can type in helicase, enter. And then it pops up like a sticky note on the board. So at the beginning of class, their little sticky notes are popping up, and we can go through and say, oh yeah, helicase. Who remembers what helicase does? Just a way to kind of review and also engage right off the bat at the beginning of class. Some other ways I use this, all of my lectures, I have uploaded all of those slides into Nearpod. So when I'm lecturing, what they're actually looking at is the Nearpod slide. And every 10 minutes or so, I embed these quiz questions. So if we're talking about, enzyme function, every few minutes, every 10 minutes is kind of, that's about as long as I feel like you can hold someone's attention. And so this is a way to kind of grab them back. Hey, answer this question. So which of the following statements about enzymes is true? And they'll select their answer and click submit. What I can see on my screen in real time is how each person is answering. So it gives me I can kind of gauge their comprehension of what we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. If a lot of people are missing it, then I didn't do a very good job explaining it. I should go back and re-explain. And it keeps them engaged, right? So you can't just join class and go do laundry, because there's going to be questions popping up on your screen that you have to answer. And these are part of my 50 of the points that they earn in class come from these Nearpod quizzes. So I do count this as a grade.
Angela, is it possible to import a PowerPoint into Nearpod and then tweak it?
Oh yeah. Oh, so No, this is one functionality that is a little bit frustrating. Once I have this slide, it is an image. So I cannot go in and change a word. I would have to change it in my PowerPoint and upload that new slide. And I will say that has been the one thing that has frustrated me about Nearpod.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have to convert that slide into a JPEG?
No, nope. So, so let's say, when you go to create a lesson, where you can drag and drop a PowerPoint or a PDF or an image. You can upload images, but you can drag and drop the entire PowerPoint.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Angela, does Nearpod work with Collaborate also?
So what I do is once we're all, I use Blackboard Collaborate for my classes. So once we're all logged in, I send the code for that particular lesson that day out. And then from that point on, they're looking at a Nearpod screen. Now, some students, like I said, they don't like toggling between screens. So there's an option to get the app where they can look at my face on the Blackboard Collaborate screen and have the Nearpod app on their phone. But it's not like, so you can, this works with Zoom. You can go straight when you launch a lesson, you can launch it right into Zoom, but not Blackboard Collaborate.
Okay.
And some other kinds of questions. There's a quiz question, but I want to show you some other kinds of questions that I use just to mix it up a little bit. You can do matching. And so I set a little timer. There's a countdown that will be in the corner when they're actually answering this question, and they'll get 30 seconds to match as many of the mitosis phases with the correct picture as possible. And so it's counting down and they're like, oh, metaphase, middle phase. And maybe they get confused. Maybe that's interphase. I don't know, but they can see right away. Nope, that's not right. Try again. So matching is also an option, and you can draw. So this is just the slide that I use. I asked them to label the lac operon when it is repressed and then when it is activated. And so they can, let's say they want to use red, and they're going to circle this and they're going to label that. Oh, that is, let me move this down here. That's lactose. So they can label it on their screen as well. And again, Nearpod is recording all of their scores, and I can generate a report once they're done and go back and use it for a grade. So I'll show you kind of what that report looks like so that you can see from a teacher perspective. If you wanted to use this for grades, I can go back and I can see all of those multiple choice questions. Out of 4 questions, this person got 2 out of 4, 1 out of 4, 4 out of 4. I can see who completed the matching pairs, or I can also see more detail. I can click on this and I can look question by question exactly how everyone answered, or exactly how many matching pairs they got in those 30 seconds. So she got half if I wanted to give her partial credit. So the reports I like because, like I said, I use this as a way to assign grades. These are in-class grades for me, for my classes. So another way I use these is asynchronously for labs. So I showed you that I used Edpuzzle to chop up those lab videos. And so not only did I chop them up to make them a little bit more like palatable, you know, I can watch something for 3 minutes, maybe not for 40 minutes. So I chopped up the videos, and I have put in, I wasn't teaching 1406 when we had to transition in the spring, but kudos to all of you who were, because you guys did a fantastic job. And I especially love that in that 1406 repository, there are 6 different data sets, right? So everyone, kind of like they really were in the lab, everyone's not getting the same spreadsheet of numbers. There's 6 different data sets so that I can assign them to different lab groups. And so I do that. I break them up into lab groups, even though they are online. They have a discussion board they can use. You can set that up in Blackboard. And each lab group gets a different set of data. But what I was really struggling with is just giving them a spreadsheet of numbers. I wanted to make it feel more like they had actually participated in and completed the lab as much as I possibly could. So this was my solution. I'm going to show you just the very first 1406 lab, and I did something similar with all of them. So I put them in Nearpod, and I put the video chunks. Somebody's not muted, and it's coming back at us. Okay. So I put those little video chunks in Nearpod. I uploaded each little segment, 2 to 10 minute segments of the videos, and they're all a different slide. I put some little interactive. So in lab 1, we're just learning how to take measurements using the correct number of significant figures. So I put some interactive practice in there by inserting just a web link. And another chunk of video. And then this is what I did for the data. It just felt to me, at least you have to look at a balance and write something down after you watch that segment. This is measuring 60 milliliters with a 100 milliliter beaker. Okay, you didn't really do it, but you just watched a video how to do it. Now here's a balance, and you have to write down the numbers. It's not perfect, I know that, but it was as close as I could think in my brain how to make them engage and actually interact with the material, as opposed to not watching the video at all or half listening to it and then just copying numbers from a spreadsheet. So this is what I've done for all of the labs for 1406. If you teach that, I can share it with you. I can share these with you as well. You can also, with Nearpod, you can also put questions, which I did, embed them in these short little video chunks just to check, are you actually watching these videos or not? And so that's what I do. Every group gets a link to their own group's Nearpod that has their own group's data in it. So any questions?
Did you break apart the video with the ed?
I did, yeah. I used Edpuzzle to break those videos up into chunks, yeah.
Do students have to sign up and like make an account with this before?
No. So actually, let me show you for synchronous. I showed you that all they have to do is go to nearpod.com and click on join a lesson, and they'll put the code in that I give them. But for these asynchronous lessons, how you do that is, instead of live participation, you click on student paste, and launch a new one. Looks like I already have one going. So you just click this link, and I'll send that link out to, like, if this is the Nearpod for lab group 1, I send that link out to lab group 1. And so all they'll do in their email is just click on that link, and it automatically opens that Nearpod.
And it sounds like you're having them meet and do the labs with their group kind of synchronously or like during lab time?
So I don't force that issue, but a lot of them do, just because they have a lab group. They have this group that they can collaborate with. They don't necessarily do it during the scheduled lab time. You know, they like to put it off till the last minute. So if a lab is due Monday, they're probably meeting on Sunday. But because they have that group and they know they're all working with the same data, they do interact with each other, and you can set up a discussion board for each group. So sometimes they don't all use it. I don't require it, but sometimes I can kind of see their messages back and forth, and it's really interesting to see the way they're explaining it to each other. Any more questions about Nearpod? It's my favorite.
There's one in the chat, Angela. There's a question in the chat.
Let me see. I can see it. Why is it not opening? Hold on. Can you tell me what? Oh, wait.
Yes, I can read it to you, Angela.
I see. Would the grades also be generate? Yes, they are. So you can also create a report for an asynchronous lesson as well. And so you have to enter the grades on Blackboard. They, like I said, Blackboard and Nearpod, they don't auto communicate with each other, but you can enter the grades that you see in the Nearpod report. Oh, yes. Oh, for the Edpuzzle, yes, you can export a spreadsheet and in Nearpod. Both of those, you can export the grades in a spreadsheet. Any more questions? All right, so then I'm going to show you my two favorite review games that I use interactively with students. And so Factile Jeopardy is fantastic, again, because it's so user friendly. And so I'm going to bring up that website. So I have review games for all of my classes, and this is what they look like. One thing that I do, just if you're going to use this to save a whole bunch of time, put all their names in advance and save it as a team, so you're not wasting class time typing in all the names. So here's my 1406 roster. I just choose them. I made them as a team. I hate the buzzer, so I always say no because it's annoying. And so this is what it looks like. It's this Jeopardy review game. And in order to set this up, it really could not have been more easy. When you are setting up a game, you just click on everything and type in your questions. It's so easy. But this is what it looks like once it's all set up. This is the end of the year. We're going to review everything with a little more focus on the last unit. And so we have questions, have all their names. I'm going to click on, this is a 1-point question from exam 1. And the question comes up. There's a 10-second countdown. Who can answer? Whoever can answer it, let's say Erin raises her hand. Now you can use the buzzer. It's really obnoxious. I don't use the buzzer. I tell them, so I display this on my screen and then I share my screen in Blackboard Collaborate. So they're looking at it in Blackboard Collaborate and I just have them raise their hands in Collaborate. It's way less obnoxious. And so let's say Erin raised her hand first and she gives me the correct answer. So I say, yay, Erin, and I click the check mark and she automatically gets that point. And then she can choose the next question. It's just a really fun way. Again, they're collaborating, or I'm sorry, not this. This is an individual game. They're not collaborating, but they're engaging with the content in this interactive way with me, but also with the material. And so the students really, really like this. Any questions about this one?
Just a fun question. Do you scale up the difficulty as you go 1 through 5?
I do. And I kind of base it on their exams. And I'm like, gosh, you know, one of the things, what chapter is it, where no one can ever remember the electron carriers. They call them, you know, crazy things. Was that this one? No, it wasn't that unit. But anyway, yes, I do scale up the difficulty, usually based on the most missed questions on the exams.
Do you make them answer what is a theory?
I don't, right? All right, so the last one I'm going to show you took some tweaking. Quizlet Live. Most people use Quizlet to load reviews. And I kind of had, this was trial and error, but I figured out how to do these Quizlet reviews in an interactive way. So I have this acid-base review, and what I do with this particular one, these questions come from a worksheet that I put them in breakout groups and ask them to complete the worksheet. And then when they're in their breakout groups, I give them 10 minutes and you can communicate with them via the chat, like 1 more minute. And then we're going to play a Quizlet live. So they're already in their breakout groups. And these are questions that just came, you know, straight from that acid-base review. I've loaded them in. And then I'm going to say, I want to do a Quizlet live. And so what happens, you can kind of see down here what it looks like for them in their breakout group. They play it in teams. It works best if everybody turns on their microphone because it's hard to type to each other fast enough for this to be effective. So I'm, again, really kind of encouraging them to talk to each other. And so what happens, and when you launch a Quizlet Live, everybody in that group has the same question on their screen, but only one person has the right answer on their screen. So they have to talk about it with each other. 2 properties of acids and bases, who has, you know, slippery. And so they have to talk to each other. And as they are answering the questions, what I see is for each group, I can see how they're doing. It's kind of ticking up with each correct answer. If they answer correctly, it goes all the way back down to 0. So that's sad. But I can see how they're doing. And then, you know, we can make it a fun competition. Who can be the first group to get all of these correct? So for me, it's just, you know, go in a breakout group and do a worksheet. Well, you know that some of them are just not going to do it. So it's kind of a way, again, to kind of enforce that accountability that you actually did it and really encourage them to communicate and interact, because the more they enjoy being there, the more motivated they are to learn the material. So it just is a fun way where I am not just harping on them. You have to talk in your breakout groups. They want to, because what they're doing is fun and enjoyable. So Quizlet Live, I usually use as a check after I've asked them to do a worksheet together. And questions about that one?
I'm just wondering, do you have to have a more than just a free account of Quizlet to use that as instructor, and then students have to have an account? Is that correct?
Students do not have to have an account.
Mhm.
So you can do a Quizlet Live individually.
Mhm.
You can set that up free. That's completely free. In order to put them in groups, you can do that with a free account, but it is really clunky to set up, I will say. And I finally got so that was my trial and error with it. I finally got so frustrated. I paid the $10 a year or whatever, just so that I could have more control over how I set up the groups. And but you can do it for free. It's just not very user friendly. But
Okay.
students do not have to have an account or anything. So once you set up a Quizlet Live, you give them a code very similar to Nearpod. Once I launch the game, a code comes up,
Mhm.
and then they'll just join the group that they are in their breakout groups.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering because for some reason, I was thinking about Quizlet the other day, and I was wondering if ACC had, an account that we just, like we do for Zoom and for other things. ACC has eventually, and it just seemed like an app that would be useful
Yes.
to have, but for ACC to pay.
Yeah.
But anyway,
If they do,
no problem.
I would love that, because I'm paying it personally now because I got so tired of just how hard it was to set these
I
things
hear
up.
you.
with a free
I
account.
hear you. When I first got on Zoom, I did the same thing. I was there like, I'm not going to do that. I was using Blackboard Collaborate. It wasn't working for the way I was, set up for teachers. So I said, I'm just going to pay. But luckily later, ACC came on. Okay, thank you.
I know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, with the Quizlets too, you can also then share those note card sets with the students, and they can use them to review too. All right. I guess I talked really fast. When I gave this a similar training before the fall semester, I ran over time. So I cut a bunch of stuff out, and I guess I just talked a lot faster this time. So those are all the resources that I have to share. And I'm just wondering if you guys want to add anything to this list before I send it out. If there's a particular app or website that you use in your classroom.
I do use one, Angela, that I started using only because I started with the Google Jamboard. And the reason I asked the question about, does it mix up the files or not? I just found it kind of tedious to make up 8 different groups, links for 8 groups or whatever. But the one that I use is the flippity.net. And to do drag and drop type of activities, which of course you can use to create concept maps, which you can use to do matching. And what it looks like, is it okay if I screen share?
Sure.
And I have it on the biology repository. And these are just the card activities that we made up from the Bill project, how we have the actual tactile card activities that
Yeah.
students can use. Okay, let's see.
Are you able to share?
Host disabled participant screen sharing, it says.
All right, let me see.
You might need to get out of your screen sharing.
Okay, stop
Maybe.
share. There we go.
Okay, let's see. And let me see if I can quickly go to the biology repository. Give me 1 second here to do that. And I haven't actually, I need to update it. I started posting them when I was doing 1308 last semester. I'm so bummed. I was hoping to do it again this semester, and Rick said, no, you're doing AMP2.
I
Understand why, but
yeah.
because I just love that class. But anyway, this is what it looks like. Let me see if we go, where's the repository? I believe it's this right here. I clicked on the 1308 folder, and then I put it under, where did I put it? Activities, under activities. And you know, there are all of Jan's Google Jamboards are there, and I believe some other people have contributed to that. And then it's this file. Can everybody see that? Let me get that a little bit bigger there. That says 1308 online. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
To the top. Okay, if you click on that, I have those links, and I started to put up the images and all of that in case people wanted them. But like, let's say, for example, you want to look at the types of bonds, do a drag and drop, you can click on that. And, you know, they, you know, first they have to put the images, and then they have to put, you know, the type of, I tried to kind of color code it so that they could quickly examples, you know, of each kind, and they kind of just drag and drop it. So what I do is I use Zoom. And so on the Zoom, I put, I send them the link. So you just, you know, click this link right here, and you send it before they break up into their breakout sessions. That's important. You have to send it before. And then I tell them, open it in another window, in another tab. And so then once I confirm everybody got it, then they get fast at it once they are, you have done it a couple of times. But then I ask them to do it in their groups. And the unfortunate thing, that the disadvantage of this as compared to Google Jamboards, is that they can't all interact at the same time, the little group. So instead, they each do it, and then I have them screen share within the group to check each other. And then once, you know, I break them out of their groups, I'll ask each group to screen share or whatever, and, you know, check it. Okay, take a picture. There's your answer key. But they really like it. Just, again, this is just basic information, but I always remind them that there's no way that they can do, you know, answer critical thinking activities if they don't have the basic information down. And so it's just a way to get basic info and the repetition, and they like them because it's a little bit interactive, and, you know, a break from there. But it's super easy to create them. It's flippity.net, and you can basically just do a cut and paste real quick. It's a spreadsheet. You have to do a little bit of a coding hack if you know, a little bit of a hack there to, if you want it to look nice, like, you know, of course I want it to look nice with, you know, font size that's appropriate on a screen, but it is really easy to use. And they have other types of matching and things that you had mentioned as well. And again, all really easy to set up if anybody, that's an option as well.
And can't you just like, import, if you have all of this in because I looked at Flippity for a minute and then I kind of didn't really spend a lot of time, but if you put all that information in an Excel spreadsheet, like all of these things are examples, it's really easy to import it, isn't it?
Super easy, just
Yeah.
cut and paste into there, and, you know, you can designate colors to help color code it or whatever. And then I put the background on the back. You can just do it with just, you know, drag and drop, put the image, the type of bond examples or whatever, but it's easier and quicker, I found, for the students if you help them with a little bit of color coding and go from there. So I have some of those posted on there, and I wanted to put up the original files because you know how it is when you're teaching, sometimes like, oh, I don't use that term or whatever, so now you can't use that activity. I wanted faculty to be able to edit, you know, throw out that term, I don't use it, you know, that's too specific, or let me add in these higher level terms. If it's like for 1406, these are for 1308. So you could potentially use them for 1406 and definitely 1408. But of course, you go into more depth in 1406 than you do in 1308. So you would have to just, you might need to adjust it. It might be just fine, but it's similar type of things. And the only reason I liked it is because I didn't have to go back and reset. I was just lazy, and I didn't want to do all of the links. I was just you know, I did not so much, but I didn't have time. I didn't have time when we were panicking there.
Oh yeah, I hear you. Yes. Anything to be efficient. I am all about it.
Somebody else in the chat also, I think.
Pretzel. I've never heard of this one. The pretzel.com. What is that?
Pretzel is sort of like an online discussion board. I haven't really played with it too much because it doesn't integrate with Blackboard. But it's basically like a social media platform that doesn't have advertisements and all the other, not so great stuff that go along with that. And it's actually pretty neat. I can share my screen real quick and show you just a snippet of it, if you don't mind. Let's see here, Pretzel. I haven't really done too much with it, so can't really promise too much from this, but I can show you at least a little bit how it works. So you create these bursts. So you go to thepretzel.com and you sign in. It's free currently. I don't know how long it's going to be free for, but you create a burst and you get students to, you can choose these different categories like engaging or recording. So students can record a little snippet and post it, micro chat, small group discussions, just different forums, different types of discussion. And you can select one of these. Let's see, I don't know, it's just test. Oh, here we go. I can call it a burst. Yeah, so I don't think I've played enough around with this to really tell you too much about it, but I do know that if enough people are interested in using it, it can be integrated with Blackboard, but they won't do it unless there's enough interest among everyone. So I'll just leave it at that actually until oh, I'm not even sharing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Okay, yeah, so this is what I was trying to show. I didn't realize I wasn't sharing. Okay, yeah, so there's, we'll just go back. So basically you can do these different types of tools. I don't know, right now I'm just making a bunch of the same. But I can go back to my dashboard. I did have one I made a while back, and I made just a video a second ago. Let's see, what are they here? It's not right. Oh, here we go. Okay, so yeah, so it's just like it's like a social media platform-ish kind of thing, and I posted a video of myself right here, and somebody could comment on that, and there's other functionality that I just haven't really played around with yet, but it seems interesting. It seems like there's some promise there. I don't know enough about it personally yet, so I'll hand it back to you with that.
Yeah, it looks like it's maybe a more interactive way to do discussion boards, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. Anybody else have something they particularly like and use in their classroom?
That's it for me. Super, I learned a lot. Thank you, Angela. Those look like really neat online activities. Really glad.
Yeah, hope at least one of them is useful. I'm like I said, Nearpod I think is the one that anything that you want to do in terms of content, like delivering content, that has it all.
Yeah, it's interesting because on the survey that I sent out for the workshop, that was the next one down. But I didn't know, I'm so silly. I didn't put the name, and there were people that didn't know who used it. Mm-hmm. And there just wasn't enough time. I like to give presenters at least 2 weeks, advance notice if I can. This time around, it didn't happen. And, but there was somebody that had suggested to use that Nearpod. I don't know if it was you or not, and I just didn't have the names of who volunteered for each session. But next time I'll remember.
Yeah.
If you if you're interested, it sounds really neat. Really.
Yeah, it is. It does so much. I kind of scratched the surface, but it does a lot.
It's not an app, but I like to use Dance.
How do you dance? D-A-N-C-E?
Yeah, the physical act of moving your body.
Oh, yes.
Evoke an emotion.
So yes. I
I'll ask
prefer
him.
that in person so they could really get the full picture, but yeah, online.
Ask,
too.
ask him to dance in action potential.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, y'all have a fantastic afternoon.
All right. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
everybody, for participating.
Bye.
you.
Take care.
Thanks, Angela.
Bye.
Interesting.
Great presentation.
Wonderful.
Excellent.